Hello and welcome to Left, Right, Center. I'm Shaun Boyd. We begin with changes to your financial future. For the second time in less than a year, Governor Polis has called a special session to tackle soaring property taxes. Lawmakers will convene August 26 for at least 3 days to take up a bill that will save homeowners an estimated $270 million a year, and perhaps more importantly, prevent the kind of massive spikes we've seen going forward.
Having this fight every 6 months or every year is not good for the state, and we want to end it.
Governor Polis says Colorado's property tax wars will soon be over. He says key players inside and outside the Capitol have reached a deal that brings stability and predictability for everyone.
And has a big enough coalition that it'll have the staying power, I think, for the long term. So that's really the goal here.
The other goal, to eliminate two ballot measures that Polis says go too far, capping increases in property tax revenue at 4% a year. The compromise would instead cap increases at 5.25% for local government and 6% for schools. The residential rate would drop from 6.7% to at least 6.4%, and the commercial rate to 25% for all businesses.
This may not be everything that everybody wants, but we want to make sure that people are willing to stick with it.
Specifically, people like Michael Fields, head of Advance Colorado, the conservative group and business group Colorado Concern, are pushing the ballot measures that they've agreed to pull if the compromise passes the legislature.
We have agreed to not bring property tax measures forward in the future, given that they stick to this deal, right? That legislators don't go back and try to raise rates or change things.
Fields and Senator Barb Kirkmeyer among 6 people who negotiated the compromise that dozens of groups across the political spectrum support.
I do believe that this agreement will provide immediate financial relief for families, but at the same time, as we're putting this in, the cap ensures that there won't be a spike in the future.
While voters can lift the cap, Fields says the compromise requires local governments be clear about what they're asking from voters.
It has to say, do you want to opt out of this cap for this district?
I'm optimistic that they'll be able to do this.
But it won't be without drama.
I think you're going to see bills on both sides of the aisle that come forward. I think, the deal is the deal, and I don't think that other things are going to pass.
Joining me, our analysts, Republican Dick Bottoms, Democrat Mike Dino. So, Dick, let me start with you. The governor said cap is reasonable, protects schools, protects local services. So the question is, why didn't they do this before? It wasn't until those ballot measures were going to make the ballot, and it looked like they might pass, that they did this.
Yeah, and I think Advanced Colorado and Colorado Concern deserve a lot of credit. I mean, they were doing the taxpayers' work on this thing and forcing the Democrats and Governor Polis into making this a better deal for the property taxpayers. But they thought they could get away with it. They thought they could call the bluff of Colorado Concern and Advanced Colorado. It didn't happen, and I'm still kind of dubious what's going to happen in the special session. It could still fall apart.
I think it will be tense,
yeah,
to say the least. Mike, local governments, they haven't weighed in on this compromise yet, and they're the ones that are impacted most by this. I'm not sure how they're going to respond to a cap on the amount of revenue that they can take in.
Yeah, they're not happy. I've certainly talked to some of them. One of their concerns is that they felt the ballot measures could be defeated. And we've talked about it. I think trying to get the constitutional amendment number of 55% would have been tough for number 50. And I think they also feel that they're bearing the brunt of it. And, the bottom line will be that they have to pay more of a price than other people for what this legislation could be when it's passed.
So I've had people ask this question of me. Why is it that the state is even involved in property taxes? The state doesn't get property taxes.
Yeah.
Property taxes go to the local governments. Why not let them do it anyway?
Well, I think there's two things that I see. Dick mentioned it a few shows back. I mean, the Gallagher Amendment was done off with, and there were people who said, hey, everything's going to be great, particularly people in state government, and it's not. So they kind of have a feeling they gotta pay for it. Also, education. If they don't deal with something that at least I think solidifies what local governments are going to get and what they should expect to get, education may suffer in that state government's got to backfill local governments who start losing money, and they don't want to do that.
Right.
I think there is a state role, and I think that local governments that's a pipe dream that they can do this on their own without any state involvement. In fact, I think how can the state has a vested interest in making sure that local governments are not running amok. And
well, especially since they have to backfill the education dollars.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Yes.
Well, from property taxes to sales taxes, Denverites will vote on 2 sales tax hikes in November, a 0.34% tax for Denver Health and 0.5% tax for affordable housing, proposed by Mayor Mike Johnston. On the same day, City Council referred that to the ballot. Former Mayor Wellington Webb came out opposed to it, or rather, the timing of it. He worries voters won't pass 2 tax measures, and Denver Health, he says, is a must-pass. The hospital says it provided nearly $136 million in uncompensated care over the last 6 years.
The hospitals in the Denver metro area cannot carry that patient load. Denver Health is also a teaching hospital, and it's also the #1 trauma center. Damn, Shaun, it shouldn't be that difficult that everybody in this city should be saying the same thing. In some cities around the country, they don't even have a public hospital. We should be saying Denver Health is ours, and we're going to fight for it, and we're going to protect it, and we're going to nurture it, and we're going to make sure it's around here for several generations to come.
So, Mike, if both of these tax measures pass, it would bring Denver sales tax to nearly 10%. That's on par with LA, New York. Do you see both of these passing?
Yes. I mean, Denver voters have been very generous. John Hickenlooper was elected in 2003, 21 years ago. And everything that pretty much Denver voters have been asked to pay for, they have voted for, except really one item that I remember, which is the arena that Mayor Hancock wanted a few years ago. And so they have to put a good case out there. And, you know, Mayor Webb has fought hard for Denver Health. He turned it from a regular hospital to an authority. There was a $50 million deficit, and he turned that around. And certainly it is a great asset to this community.
I would agree typically. You're right, Denverites are very generous, but the cost of living these days is so high that I think Webb makes a good point, too, that this may be a year that voters go, I don't know about this, with both of them, right?
Yes. You know, Shaun, when I saw your interview, I thought about when you interviewed Governor Bill Owens, former Governor Owens, about the Capitol and how Polis was not doing anything to clean it up after the riots.
Right.
And I watched Webb the other night, and I think he gave Denverites permission to say no to this. And I think that's really important. And I know he's not opposed to it, but I think a lot of voters looked to him and they said, you know, former Mayor Webb is right. We don't need this right now, even if it's a good idea. And Denver is becoming more and more unaffordable. I think it was a turning point in this.
What he suggests, you know, Denver has 7 dedicated sales taxes right now. His suggestion, and some of those, they have funds that, you know, with balances in them. They're not using all the money, right? So why not work on a measure that asks voters to redirect some of that money to affordable housing next spring, maybe?
Yeah.
Well, I think people who voted for a lot of those measures want to see them enacted, like the sidewalks, which I'm still waiting for.
Man.
I'm still waiting for those sidewalks. But the interesting thing is there are a lot of people maybe more affected by affordable housing than by health care that's provided by Denver Health. And that's one of the challenges of this election.
And that's what Webb talked about, right? Welcome back to Left, Right, Center. A woman who served as one of the state's top election officials now faces jail time for her role in a security breach after the 2020 election. A jury found former Mesa County clerk and election denier Tina Peters guilty of 7 charges related to tampering with election equipment. Peters will be sentenced in October. So, Dick, you know, she's 68 years old,
Yes.
no previous record. You really see her serving jail time?
I think she will receive some, and I think she should. I don't think it should be 10 years. But this is the thing, Shaun. A message has got to be sent to these elected officials who are in election management that you cannot do this. And the other thing is she is defiant. I mean, she did an interview with Grand Junction TV yesterday, basically saying the judge was crooked, and this was trumped up, and I was treated unfairly. She's not trying to incur any sympathy at all. And so I think the judge will sentence her, and I think he should.
I think she's trying to encourage sympathy. Maybe
and
not
maybe she wants to be a martyr. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's it.
So, Mike, do you think this verdict will deter similar behavior in the future, as Dick said?
I don't think it'll deter people like her and her followers,
Right.
and a lot of them want to continue, you know, to pursue, these type of elections they feel are unfair. And they want things to be their way. They want a system that's in their vision, going back to the paper ballots, basically.
Yes.
And
We do have paper ballots.
well,
We just put them in the mail.
no, we put them in the mail, but they want you to show up at a precinct and
Wait in line.
fill one out nowadays. So.
All right, well, if you're like most Coloradans, you probably hadn't even heard of the Parks and Wildlife Commission until last December, when it was tasked with overseeing the reintroduction of wolves in Colorado. The commission has repeatedly come under fire from ranchers who say it has refused to manage wolves that repeatedly kill their livestock. Governor Polis seems to have taken the concerns to heart. He announced 2 new appointments to the commission, including Ty Jacober, who owns Phoenix Ranching, which was once the largest producer of grass-fed beef in Colorado, and Murphy Robinson, the former director of public safety for Denver, current owner of several security technology companies, and a lifelong hunter.
How the people of Colorado voted in wolf reintroduction, and it is the job of CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, to implement that law. It is so important to listen to the people that it's affecting. We have to listen and understand how it's affecting our agricultural communities. We have to listen to how it's affecting our hunters, and too often we allow politics to seep in to areas in which it shouldn't be. I don't think in our parks and our wildlife experience there should be politics. I think we need to have a balanced approach.
Politics, it's in everything these days.
Yeah.
You know, these new appointments come 2 days after the Cattlemen's Association sent a letter to the governor, complaining about how CPW's been handling this wolf management. This conflict, I think, has come to a tipping point.
Well, I agree. I mean, I know Murphy Robinson, so I think it's a good appointment. I think he's a very fair-minded person, and he understands what's at stake. We're going to see another ballot measure dealing with, prohibiting hunting of mountain lions and bobcats, and I think that it further creates the divide between rural and urban that doesn't benefit our state, overall when we're trying to solve bigger problems.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. Dick, the letter was prompted by CPW's denial of a chronic depredation permit. So basically a wolf going out killing multiple livestock, and then they're given the permission to put that wolf down. This was for the Middle Park stock growers, which has had 8 confirmed sheep killed by wolves and 7 more that are missing. Robinson told me he's going to bring a data-driven approach to this job. Yeah, sounds like that's what's needed here.
Well, I hope so, because the commission is just ignoring those ranchers up there. And let's make it clear, Shaun, 2 counties enacted this wolf reintroduction, Denver and Boulder. Honestly, if you take those 2 counties out of the election, the state of Colorado voted down wolf reintroduction. They essentially did this, and that's the problem. The way they ignore these ranchers, and those 8 sheep that you mentioned. I mean, the stories about that family, they're just heartbreaking. They're heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's their livelihood.
Yes, it is.
And that we need to keep in mind here.
That's right.
Well, finally, a look at the changing electorate in this state, thanks to Dick, who wrote a column about what he calls a post-partisan Colorado. The latest voter affiliation numbers show nearly 50% of Coloradans are now unaffiliated, while just 26% are Democrats and 23% Republicans. So, Dick, do you really think there's an opportunity here for a third party that appeals to this unaffiliated crowd?
I do, and I never thought that before, Shaun. But I think we're headed that direction. The other statistic I did not include in my piece that I didn't know about until after I wrote the piece, among 18 to 34-year-olds, only 14% are Republican, 23% are Democrat, and 60% are unaffiliated.
That's no surprise.
Well, so my age and older, I mean, we're going to be dying, in the next whatever. And so these are the people that are going to dominate Colorado politics going into the next 20, 30 years. I could see a scenario where we have unaffiliated candidates run and win in Colorado because I think the state is moving more and more towards issue-based campaigns and not partisan elections. I really do.
What does that third party look like? Does it look like it's more to the middle, or does it look like it's to one of the extremes?
Well, look, I've always felt like that Colorado was very socially liberal but economically conservative. Now, it's been distorted with this anti-Trump attitude we've had for the last, 8 years. But once we get past into that post-Trump era, which will come at some point, thank God, I think that you will start seeing that kind of a candidate, kind of fiscally conservative, socially liberal, and that's going to be the candidate that can win in Colorado.
So, Mike, clearly most of those who are unaffiliated right now are voting for Democrats. Are they really unaffiliated then? And do you think at some point they would vote Republican, that there's that opportunity for Republicans to peel some of them off after post-Trump?
Yeah, I think it's post-Trump. I mean, they really, Dave Williams needs to move on, and Tina Peters needs to move on and get out of the public consciousness, and I think they'll have a chance to start anew. A lot of people through all the generations are tired of the partisan politics, so we've seen that move to unaffiliated. I do think it's a generational thing, and as the millennials and the Gen Zs, get older, they're going to appreciate the unaffiliated, independent candidates more, and it's going to come down to money. Unaffiliated and independent candidates have to be better funded. The parties do a good job of that, and they continue to do a good job of that. They plan to continue that that situation, and that makes the playing field pretty exclusive, and elbows out to anybody else.
Yeah, you're right. While Colorado has more unaffiliated voters, it has fewer voters overall. Political polls looked at voter registration changes in all 50 states last month and found Colorado's voter registration shrunk by nearly 40,000 people, more than every other state but California. Nearly 9,000 Republicans left the voter rolls and just over 12,000 Democrats. So what do you guys make of this? I mean, is this people moving out of Colorado? Is it people just going, I'm not going to vote anymore?
Well, there has been a migration out of the state. I don't know how much it accounts for this. But there also, after you don't vote in so many elections, you get kicked off the rolls. And so that's probably what happened here.
So that doesn't bode well for Colorado, that if you got a lot of Coloradans going, I'm just not going to vote anymore, right?
Well, and I think there is some type of that situation where people don't feel they have anybody to vote for. I mean, the two parties aren't putting candidates forward, and I think people are sitting on their hands.
Aren't putting candidates forward that they like.
Yeah.
I'm always like, okay, skip one election if you want, but vote in the other ones, right?
Well,
I mean, there's ballot measures, and very important ballot measures. I mean, look what we've seen with the wolf reintroduction,
well,
right?
and we're used to voting. We talk about it all the time, but I mean, you walk around your neighborhood and there's people that just don't think about it, and even on an election like this important as November 5th, they may not get their ballot turned in. I mean, like Dick said, they're not getting a ballot, and they're not going to go seek it out either.
Right. No, too bad. Go vote.
For sidewalks.
Yeah. No. All right, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching Left, Right, Center. We'll see you next time.